For centuries, towering fortresses dominated landscapes, their stone walls standing as symbols of power and security. Cities flourished behind these ramparts, where survival depended on the strength of their defenses against invading forces. These fortifications dictated the course of battles and the fate of entire regions. Armies without the means to breach these walls found themselves at a standstill, often resorting to starvation to force a surrender. Siege warfare was a slow and costly affair. Each assault required meticulous planning and immense resources, with the outcome uncertain until the last stone was thrown or the last arrow loosed. Defenders, entrenched behind their stone barriers, relied on ingenuity and patience. They fortified their walls, crafted traps, and devised strategies to outlast their attackers, turning each siege into a test of endurance. The balance of power shifted slowly as new technologies emerged. From simple wooden engines to complex machines, engineers sought to create tools capable of breaching the seemingly impenetrable walls. Yet the age of the fortress was not to last forever. As the art of siege warfare evolved, so too did the fortifications, leading to an ongoing arms race between attackers and defenders. In this world, walls were more than mere structures. They were symbols of hope and despair, representing the struggle for survival against overwhelming odds. Each siege told a story of human determination. But as the balance began to shift, the very walls that once offered protection would soon face unprecedented challenges. The introduction of new weaponry would change the rules of engagement forever. What began as a contest of engineering and patience would soon evolve into a race against time and technology. The question loomed: what would finally render these mighty walls obsolete? As we delve deeper into the history of sieges, we will uncover the innovations that transformed warfare and the relentless march of progress that spelled doom for the age of the fortress. The walls that once ruled the world were about to face their greatest challenge. How would the age-old structures respond to the thunderous roar of new weapons? The battlefield is alive with tension as massive trebuchets, crafted from sturdy oak and iron, creak into motion. Their counterweights swing, sending heavy stones soaring toward the distant castle walls, a testament to human ingenuity and ambition. As the stones crash against the fortress, defenders scramble atop the walls, their faces a mix of fear and determination. The relentless assault tests the strength of stone and resolve, revealing the vulnerability of even the mightiest fortifications. Siege towers, towering wooden structures on wheels, roll forward under a hail of arrows. Each tower is a fortress in itself, shielding attackers as they inch closer to the castle's defenses, embodying the relentless pursuit of conquest. Inside the siege tower, soldiers prepare for the final push. They grip their weapons tightly, hearts pounding as the tower shudders with each arrow that strikes its frame. The air is thick with anticipation and the scent of sweat and fear. The trebuchets continue their relentless barrage, but success is never guaranteed. Walls can be repaired and defenders adapt, creating a cat-and-mouse game that stretches the limits of patience and resources on both sides. As the siege drags on, fortifications evolve. Walls grow thicker, surfaces are angled to deflect projectiles, and kill zones are established to maximize the defender's advantage, turning the tide in their favor. The sound of wood creaking and stones crashing fills the air, but even the most powerful machines face limits. The siege becomes a test of endurance, with both attackers and defenders locked in a battle of attrition. Among the chaos, a young soldier named Alaric, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes, stands out. His face shows the strain of battle, sweat glistening on his brow, embodying the human cost of this relentless siege. Days turn into weeks, and the siege continues. Alaric watches as his comrades fall, the weight of loss heavy on his heart. The once simple notion of victory now feels like a distant dream, clouded by uncertainty. The ingenuity of siege engines and the bravery of soldiers push the boundaries of warfare, yet the outcome remains uncertain. Each day brings new challenges as both sides adapt, learning from each engagement. As the sun sets on another day of conflict, the battle rages on. The struggle between stone and wood, between attacker and defender, continues to unfold, leaving the fate of the fortress hanging in the balance. The dawn of the 15th century heralded a seismic shift in siege warfare. gunpowder artillery emerged, transforming the battlefield. Massive bombards, crude yet powerful, began to replace the traditional methods of siege, forever altering the dynamics of conflict. Among the first to wield this new power were the Ottomans, whose formidable cannons would soon lay waste to the Theodosian walls of Constantinople. The city, once thought impregnable, faced an unprecedented threat as gunpowder changed the rules of engagement. As the cannons roared to life, the sound echoed through the streets of Constantinople. The defenders, once confident behind their towering walls, now felt a creeping dread as their centuries-old defenses trembled under the relentless assault. The bombards unleashed a torrent of destruction, each blast sending shockwaves through the city. The once stalwart fortifications began to crumble, revealing the vulnerability of walls that had stood for generations against invaders. The fall of Constantinople in 1453 marked a turning point in military history. The walls that had symbolized strength and stability were reduced to rubble, demonstrating the terrifying effectiveness of gunpowder artillery. Even as the Ottomans celebrated their victory, the implications of this new warfare rippled across Europe. Other nations scrambled to develop their own artillery, recognizing that the age of the fortress was swiftly coming to an end. In the wake of these developments, the medieval mindset began to shift. Fortifications that once dictated strategy now faced a formidable adversary. The balance of power was tilting, and the walls were no longer invincible. The introduction of cannons not only changed the nature of sieges but also instilled fear in defenders. The knowledge that walls could fail led to a new urgency in military strategy, as the once reliable bastions of defense began to falter. The chaotic sound of cannon fire became a constant in warfare. The once methodical pace of siege operations was replaced by a frantic race against time, as attackers sought to breach defenses before defenders could adapt. As the 15th century progressed, the evolution of artillery continued. Each new design promised greater destruction, pushing the limits of engineering and changing the very essence of siege warfare. The dawn of gunpowder artillery marked the beginning of the end for the medieval fortress. As walls crumbled and strategies shifted, the stage was set for an even more profound transformation in the nature of warfare. As the 15th century dawned, the sound of cannon fire echoed across Europe. Towers that once stood as symbols of strength now crumbled under the relentless assault of artillery, their stone faces splintering and collapsing. Engineers, faced with the new reality, began to lower castle walls and thicken them with earth. The very geometry of fortifications shifted as they sought to adapt to the horizontal fire of cannons. In the wake of destruction, some castles were abandoned entirely, their once proud silhouettes now mere shadows of their former glory. The landscape transformed, revealing the vulnerability of these once imposing fortifications. The siege of Constantinople in 1453 exemplified this shift. The Ottomans, armed with massive cannons, breached the Theodosian walls, marking a pivotal moment in the decline of medieval fortifications. As artillery technology advanced, the design of castles became increasingly impractical. Tall, vertical walls were replaced by lower, broader structures that could better withstand cannon fire. The defensive mindset of the medieval world began to crumble alongside the walls. Fortresses, once symbols of power, now represented a growing vulnerability in the face of evolving warfare. In response to the changing tide, some engineers experimented with star-shaped designs, aimed at minimizing blind spots and maximizing defensive capabilities against cannon fire. Yet, even these innovations could not guarantee safety. The relentless nature of artillery fire forced defenders to rethink their strategies and adapt to an ever-evolving battlefield. As the 16th century approached, the notion of a castle as an impregnable fortress faded. The walls that once defined power now became a liability, exposing the fragility of medieval defenses. The era of the castle was drawing to a close, yet the spirit of innovation persisted. Engineers and architects were now tasked with creating new forms of defense in a rapidly changing world. As the sun set on the age of the castle, the battle between offense and defense intensified. The next phase of siege warfare was on the horizon, and the stakes had never been higher. As the 17th century dawns, The landscape of warfare transforms with the emergence of star forts. These angular bastions, designed with precision geometry, rise to challenge the artillery that once threatened them. Their sloped walls and pointed bastions deflect cannon fire, showcasing a new era in defensive architecture. The balance of power shifts as engineers apply mathematics to fortification, creating structures that can absorb the force of siege artillery while minimizing blind spots. Inside the star fort, soldiers move methodically, preparing for the inevitable siege. Their uniforms, worn and dusty, reflect the harsh realities of prolonged conflict. Each man knows the stakes. The fort's design offers a chance for survival against the relentless power of cannons. The echoes of hammers striking iron resonate as they reinforce the walls, a testament to the human effort that underpins these formidable structures. Here, geometry becomes a shield against destruction. The star fort's layout is a marvel of engineering, featuring overlapping fields of fire that allow defenders to cover every angle. As enemy forces approach, the defenders take their positions, ready to unleash a coordinated barrage of cannon fire. The fort's design not only protects, but also empowers its occupants, turning the once passive role of defense into an active engagement in the battle for survival. The geometry of the fort becomes a weapon in its own right. Sieges become complex contests of strategy, as attackers must navigate the fort's intricate defenses. Engineers study the fort's angles, calculating the best approach to breach the walls. The atmosphere is tense, filled with the sounds of cannon fire and the cries of soldiers. Each assault tests the limits of both the fortifications and the resolve of the defenders. The star fort stands as a testament to human ingenuity, but it is not invulnerable. As the siege wears on, the defenders grow weary. Fatigue etches lines on their faces, and the once vibrant colors of their uniforms fade under the relentless sun. The fort, while designed to withstand bombardment, begins to show signs of strain. Cracks appear in the walls, and the sound of cannon fire becomes a constant reminder of the precariousness of their situation. Every hour spent inside the fort is a mix of hope and despair. The geometry of the star fort allows for a temporary balance, but the relentless nature of warfare means that attackers adapt quickly. New artillery techniques emerge, targeting the fort's weaknesses. Engineers on both sides engage in a deadly game of cat and mouse, where every innovation is met with a countermeasure. The fort's design, once a symbol of strength, now faces the harsh reality of evolving technology and tactics. Logistics become crucial in the siege. Supplies dwindle, and the defenders must ration food and ammunition. The star fort, once a bastion of hope, now feels like a prison. The sound of distant cannon fire is accompanied by the whispers of men contemplating their fate. Their resolve is tested, but the fort's design continues to provide a glimmer of hope as they prepare for the next assault with grim determination. As the siege drags on, the defenders find solace in their shared experiences and camaraderie. They recount tales of past victories, drawing strength from their collective memory. The star fort, with its intricate design, becomes a symbol of their resilience. They know that while the geometry of the fort offers protection, it is their spirit and unity that will ultimately determine their survival against the relentless tide of warfare. The attackers, emboldened by their numbers and artillery, prepare for a final push against the star fort. They gather their forces, strategizing under the cover of night. The fort's defenders, aware of the impending assault, steel themselves for what may come. The geometry of the fort may have bought them time, but the next battle could determine their fate. The tension mounts as both sides brace for the clash of wills and firepower. As dawn breaks, the air is thick with anticipation. The defenders stand ready, their resolve hardening as they prepare to face the onslaught. The star fort, a testament to their ingenuity, looms large against the horizon, embodying both hope and fear. The geometry that once provided a semblance of security now feels like a double-edged sword. With the sun rising, both sides know that the next hours could change everything. In this moment, the star fort represents more than just stone and earth. It embodies the struggle between innovation and tradition. As the first cannon fires in the distance, the battle for the future of fortifications begins anew. The geometry of defense may have evolved, but the quest for survival continues. setting the stage for the next chapter in the relentless saga of siege warfare. The dawn of industrial warfare marked a profound shift in siege tactics. Heavy artillery, once a novelty, became the backbone of military strategy, capable of unleashing devastation on fortifications that had withstood centuries of conflict. During the Franco-Prussian War, the relentless pounding of artillery transformed the landscape of warfare. Fortresses that once symbolized strength now faced systematic destruction, crumbling under the weight of industrial might. Railways became vital arteries, transporting massive cannons and ammunition to the front lines. This logistical revolution ensured that artillery could maintain a continuous barrage, overwhelming defenders who struggled to adapt. As the First World War unfolded, the sheer scale of bombardment reached unprecedented levels. Fortifications, once thought impenetrable, began to collapse under days of sustained fire, leading to a new era of siege warfare. The psychological impact of industrial artillery was profound. Defenders, once confident behind thick walls, now faced panic as their strongholds were reduced to rubble, altering the very nature of siege warfare. Artillery units became specialized, with each piece designed for specific tasks. The evolution of weaponry meant that fortifications could no longer provide reliable protection, forcing engineers to rethink their designs. The relentless nature of industrial siege warfare forced defenders to innovate. Star forts were modified, but even these adaptations struggled against the sheer firepower of modern artillery. With each bombardment, the balance of power shifted. Fortifications became obstacles rather than barriers, slowing attackers but no longer able to halt their advance, leading to a new understanding of defense. As the war progressed, the industrial capacity of nations became the deciding factor in sieges. Armies with superior logistics and artillery could sustain their assaults, leading to swift victories. The age of static defense was fading. As fortifications crumbled, the future of warfare began to take shape, hinting at strategies that would redefine conflict in the years to come. As the threat of artillery grew, military strategists turned their focus underground. Reinforced concrete bunkers emerged, designed to withstand relentless bombardments, offering a new form of defense against an evolving battlefield. The Maginot Line epitomized this shift. Its intricate design featured deep tunnels and fortified positions, allowing defenders to launch counterattacks while remaining shielded from enemy fire. Constructed to deter German advances, the Atlantic Wall represented a monumental effort to fortify coastlines. Concrete bunkers dotted the landscape, each a testament to the belief that defense could outlast the assault. These underground fortifications changed the nature of sieges. Attackers could no longer rely solely on brute force. They had to adapt their strategies, seeking to encircle or bypass these formidable defenses. As the war progressed, the psychological impact of these bunkers became evident. Soldiers learned to fear the unseen enemy lurking within, where artillery could not reach them. The shift to underground warfare also marked a change in tactics. Mobility became paramount, with armies employing air power and combined arms to disrupt enemy positions and supply lines. As concrete fortifications became commonplace, engineers experimented with designs that maximized protection while minimizing visibility. Camouflage and deception played crucial roles in this new defensive paradigm. The reliance on underground structures also highlighted the limitations of traditional siege tactics. Artillery could destroy walls, but bunkers required new methods to neutralize their occupants. As battles raged on, the stark contrast between above-ground chaos and the relative calm of underground bunkers became a defining feature of modern warfare, reshaping the battlefield landscape. With the evolution of warfare, the prominence of bunkers foreshadowed a future where defense would continuously adapt. The next phase of siege warfare would challenge the very foundations of these concrete sanctuaries. As the 20th century unfolded, the nature of warfare shifted dramatically. Bunker buster munitions, engineered to penetrate deep into the earth, became the new frontier of siege warfare. These precision-guided weapons turned fortified positions into mere targets, rendering traditional defenses obsolete. The development of these advanced munitions was driven by the need to neutralize underground command centers. High-speed footage reveals the moment of impact as these bombs pierce through layers of reinforced concrete, showcasing the destructive power of modern technology. In conflicts like the Gulf War, precision strikes demonstrated the effectiveness of bunker busters. They effectively dismantled enemy strongholds, showcasing a new era where fortifications could no longer guarantee safety. The ground itself became a battleground. The evolution of targeting systems allowed for unprecedented accuracy. Satellites and drones provided real-time intelligence, guiding munitions to their intended targets. This technological leap changed the dynamics of siege warfare, making concealment increasingly futile. As bunkers became essential for protection, they also became prime targets. The psychological impact of knowing that even the deepest shelters could be breached added a new layer of tension to modern warfare, shifting strategies on both sides. The construction of these bunkers reflected the desperate need for security. Thick walls and hidden entrances were designed to withstand bombardments, yet the advent of bunker busters rendered these efforts nearly futile. In the face of such threats, military engineers had to rethink fortification strategies. The emphasis shifted from building impenetrable walls to creating mobile, adaptable defenses that could respond to aerial assaults. The relentless advance of technology in warfare meant that traditional fortifications were not just challenged, they were rendered obsolete. The ground, once considered a refuge, became a perilous zone of vulnerability. As nations adapted to these new realities, the concept of defense transformed. The focus shifted from static structures to dynamic strategies that incorporated mobility and rapid response, reflecting the changing nature of conflict. In this evolving landscape, the last bastions of fortified defense faced unprecedented challenges. The future of warfare lay in the balance, as both sides sought new ways to outmaneuver and outsmart their adversaries. The legacy of siege warfare stretches across centuries, from the towering castles of the Middle Ages to the hidden bunkers of modern conflicts. Each innovation in defense faced relentless countermeasures, reshaping the landscape of warfare. Fortifications, once symbols of power, became relics of a bygone era, as speed and precision took precedence over stone walls. As we reflect on this evolution, the question remains, what lessons have we learned from our relentless pursuit of security? The trebuchet, once the pinnacle of siege technology, gave way to the thunderous roar of cannons. As cities fell to gunpowder, the very foundations of power shifted. The Ottoman Empire's conquest of Constantinople marked a turning point, illustrating how quickly walls could be rendered obsolete. The echoes of cannon fire reshaped not just fortifications, but the political landscape of nations, demonstrating that no defense is invulnerable to innovation. Star forts emerged as a response to evolving artillery, their angular designs reflecting a new understanding of geometry in warfare. These fortifications, with their sloped walls and overlapping fields of fire, provided a temporary balance against the onslaught of cannons. However, the relentless march of industrialization soon rendered even these advanced structures vulnerable. The lessons learned from each iteration of defense shaped the next, but the cycle of vulnerability persisted. As the 20th century dawned, warfare became increasingly mechanized. The Franco-Prussian War and World War I showcased how industrial capacity could overwhelm even the most fortified positions. Bunkers and concrete defenses, once thought to be impervious, crumbled under the weight of sustained bombardment. The lessons of the past echoed in the strategies of the present, as fortifications were no longer a guarantee of safety, but a challenge to be overcome. The shift to underground fortifications represented a final attempt to evade the destructive power of artillery. The Maginot Line and the Atlantic Wall became symbols of this new defensive strategy, sprawling networks designed to withstand relentless assaults. Yet as warfare evolved, so too did the methods of attack. The very ground that once offered refuge became a battleground as mobility and air power took center stage. Modern warfare has introduced precision-guided munitions that penetrate deep into the earth, rendering traditional bunkers obsolete. The introduction of bunker busters marked a new era, where even the most fortified positions could be targeted with devastating accuracy. The balance of power shifted once more, emphasizing intelligence and speed over static defenses. In this landscape, fortifications became mere obstacles rather than impenetrable barriers. As we look back on the evolution of siege warfare, it becomes clear that fortifications did not vanish. They adapted to the changing tides of conflict. Each defensive innovation faced its own counterweapon, illustrating the relentless arms race between offense and defense. The lessons learned from centuries of warfare remind us that security is a fleeting concept, constantly challenged by the ingenuity of attackers. The final remnants of ancient fortifications stand as a testament to the past, their stone walls weathered by time and conflict. They serve as reminders of a world where defense dictated strategy, now overshadowed by the speed and precision of modern warfare. The landscape of battle has transformed, leaving behind the echoes of walls that once promised safety but ultimately succumbed to the relentless march of progress. In the end, the story of siege warfare is not just about walls and weapons. It is about the human experience of conflict and survival. Generations have fought to protect their homes, only to see their defenses eroded by innovation. The legacy of these battles shapes our understanding of security today, reminding us that true safety lies not in walls, but in adaptability and resilience. As we conclude this exploration of siege warfare, we are left with a profound understanding of vulnerability. The remnants of fortifications may fade, but the lessons endure. In a world where walls no longer guarantee safety, we must embrace the complexities of defense, recognizing that the only constant is change. The legacy of siege warfare teaches us that no wall lasts forever, and the future will always demand new solutions.